Okay, we are rounding out the 5E with the fourth E in the 5E, and that is elaborate. And so you can see just from the static menu choice that we have on the screen that there's a lot in here. And if I scroll over, you can see there are lots and lots of different examples of different choices and selections of things to do and elaborate. Much like with the explain, it's not designed for you to go from the beginning to the end, but rather you pick and choose the pieces that really fit best for your needs as you move through this standard and move through the 5E. Note that there are a couple of teacher pieces in here that's noted by those orange T's, and then there's lots and lots of resources for students. So while we're looking at the list as a whole, I just want to remind you of the third and final consumable book that your students have, and that's going to contain this article right here, Reading Science. So the journal that you have is Science Literacy, and it includes this reading passage as well as a writing prompt that you'll find in Evaluate. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what was in that book, and we'll talk about this as well. You'll notice that in Elaborate Online, there are 3 different levels of that reading passage. So the one that's in your printed book is going to be on grade level, and that's going to be B. So when we get down to that, we'll explore that a little bit more, but I just kind of wanted to give you a preview of why there are so many of those. So we're going to go ahead and start here with the top, and this is called Next Step Inquiry. And this is an excellent resource for differentiating for your students, or if you are wanting to practice the skill of questioning and how to set up an investigation with your students. This is a really great activity. So this is one that's going to be really modeled and guided by the teachers, and it's basically going to be an activity that helps students ask their own question, which is going to let them go into the concept more in depth, and it helps them learn how to organize their thinking and then carry out that investigation to find their answer. So this might be a really great if your students have a solid understanding of that particular concept to this point. Maybe you've done a pre-assessment and they've really seemed to be mastering this skill. This would be a great place for them to go either as a whole class or maybe a group of students or individual students. And those of you that are differentiating for your GATE students might want to take a look at that. So we've got some teacher guide instructions here. So just kind of scroll down here. You can kind of take, and it gives you some examples of what this might look like for this particular scope. Notice that there are some other components for the next step inquiry, and there's a key, there's a parent letter if you wanted to assign some of this at home or let the parents know what they're doing. And these are some different types of investigation types and so forth. So there's some other resources over there. Next on the T list and second on our list is called extensions. So these are again a lot like the Engage Starter. They're ideas that you can take and develop if you're wanting to take the concept maybe a next step. So these are just kind of different ideas that you can do maybe as a teacher demo, or you could ask your students to do this to maybe explore the concept a little bit more in depth. Not a full-blown investigation, but supplemental. Okay, so we see the next 3 sections are the reading science. So because this is the one that is printed in your book, Science B, I'm going to go ahead and open this one up first. So your students can read this in their book on paper, but you can also assign it to them online if you wanted to do that. And don't forget that it has this great text-to-speech feature if you decide to assign that online. And you'll notice that there's always going to be a title, and this is going to be a reading passage that is directly tied to the particular standard. It includes your Lexile level, and note the Lexile level here on Science B is 450, and the paragraphs are numbered, and at the end there are usually about 5 questions that relate to what they've read. So obviously a really great resource for integrating reading, for supporting reading, but also reading to gather more information about this particular concept. So if we go back to our list here, remember our Lexile here was 450. The A version is going to be the same article, but you'll notice the Lexile is 380. So if you need a Lexile, that was a little bit easier, but you still want them to experience that same article with the same questions. You could go down to level A. Now this is not in the pre-printed book that your student has, but you can print it out right over here. And as you can imagine, C is going to be a slightly higher reading level. So if you have students that are a little bit more advanced readers, you can meet their reading level here. So if you are a departmentalized science teacher, please share this resource with your reading teachers. If you're self-contained, obviously this is a great way to support science and reading and science. And be sure to use this resource because it's a great one. Okay, going down the list, books on topic is simply a list of books that would be great fits for the classroom library or for your school library. So these are just books that they're recommending that go along really well with the concept and they're appropriate for your grade level. So this might be something you wanted to print out or give a list to the librarian if they're looking to purchase some books for the library. Okay, going back to our drop down, we have similar to reading science, this is another content connection here that we have with math, and there's 3 levels of these as well. These I don't recommend or use as much as reading just because these are not necessarily aligned with our scope and sequence for 2nd grade math. So I leave it to the discretion of teachers to just kind of look at these activities, and if you have introduced this already in math, I think it would be great, or you could make note of when you do introduce this concept and come back to that. So you can print these out and you can also again level these out a little bit too. So that's just not something that I have taken time to align with the math curriculum. One day I might do that, but I do hear feedback from teachers that there are some nice pieces in there that really help. Okay, finishing up our Elaborate, we have 2 versions of engineering connections, which is a great way for us to start making some real-world applications for this science concept, as well as starting to get some practice with designing and engineering. So you'll see that there's a teacher side, which is going to have instructions for how to do this particular project. And then there's going to be a student side that's going to have all of the student handouts. And again, you can see that you can assign this online. And it always has background information, and then it has some sort of challenge, gives criteria, and then your students are to solve and address that challenge. Again, I think this is an excellent differentiation opportunity for, again, students that are ready either to go more deeply into a concept or they're already there and you're looking for a way for them to maybe apply their knowledge. I think the engineering connections are great. This is a relatively new piece of STEMscopes. It's only been around for about 2 years. Okay, and then lastly, the concept review game is something you can assign online. And you can have your students practice just key terms, concepts, and then putting those together. You can explore this a little bit, not super high level, good basic review. I would not use this too much. I think I would use it probably if your students needed some intervention or some basic review, but good to know that that's there. So lots of choices in Elaborate. We're going to go ahead and stop and take some time to go ahead and let you explore this piece on your own.